Hi guys, Leanne here again. Today we're going to work on a little craft. So if you're anything like me and a little bit on the sentimental side, you think you'll appreciate this one. My grandmother gave me a beautiful doll many years ago. She has long since passed, but the doll survives. Unfortunately, the doll was a little bit worse for wear. At one point in time, she was sitting up on a shelf and got a little dusty. So I thought I was going to clean her off, give her a little wash up. And as I was washing her head off, all of her hair fell off. So this beautiful doll lost all of her hair. And you can kind of see what the hair color used to be. Used to be this beautiful dark brown. Now, this doll sat on my dresser for many years with no hair, staring at my children and terrifying them. They always said that she had dead eyes and would just freak them out, especially in the middle of the night. Now, I personally thought the doll was absolutely beautiful. It came with this beautiful crocheted gown that my grandmother made, and I definitely did not want to get rid of it as a very fond memory of her. So I did end up having some extra time on my hands, so I decided that I was going to give the doll some hair. Now, looking up different ways of doing this, I did manage to find a post about just using some embroidery thread and adding some hair that way. So as you can see, I've already started this doll's hair. I am going with a nice hot pink hairdo. I thought it was going to be very funky and sort of came up with the times and looked very pretty with the yellow dress with pink flowers. So I'm going to walk you through the process of how I've done this much up to this point and move forward a little bit and show you how I do it, okay? So what we are going to need is, one, the doll's head. The doll's head cannot be on the doll, so carefully remove the doll's head from the doll, ensuring that all pieces remain intact so that you can put it together again a little bit later. The next thing you're going to need is embroidery thread. Now, I just went to Walmart and ended up getting a really big pack of embroidery thread of lots of different colors. You can use this for various types of stitching, not only embroidery, and you can also use it to make friendship bracelets, which my children do enjoy making, as do I. So I just bought a multi-pack color, like the biggest pack they had. If you need more, because I think I only got another 4 of this color, but I was going to use different types of colors in her hair as I go near the bottom. But if you wanted more of one single color, then Walmart probably isn't the place to go. You probably want to go to a store like Michael's, who have large spools of embroidery thread all in one color, but the texture is a little bit different. At Michael's, I find some of their textures are closer to that of sewing thread, which is very good, very strong and durable, but the embroidery thread that I had already started using was actually from Dollarama, and had a much softer, gentler texture and look to it, which I sort of wanted to continue, and Walmart did have that in a relatively cheap price for me. So I have a few more packages of this embroidery thread that I'm going to use, and hopefully this will be enough, and if not, I'll use a darker color to kind of give her some highlights. I'm also going to need a sewing needle. Now, this needle, if I can kind of get it up there, is a larger needle, and it has a larger eye hole, which makes it a little bit easier to thread the embroidery thread through it, as it is a very thick thread, as multiple pieces of thread actually twisted all together. Also going to use a pair of scissors, which is a handy dandy for when I'm trying to cut it into size. I'm going to use a pair of needle nose pliers because my fingers are not small enough to fit inside that doll's head to try to pull out this giant needle as I'm shoving it through the rubber head. And always a good idea, a trusty little thimble. This is just to save your fingers from having needles impale them. Okay, so let's get started. What I first want to do is pick the color that I'm going to use, which is going to be this pink. I like to start with about an arm length or so, and I'm going to double it up in the sewing needle. So bear with me while I attempt to thread this baby. I don't have a threader. I used to have some threaders, but over the years they have broken, and I just found I didn't really need them. I was proficient enough at doing it most times without one. So I'm going to do approximately an arm's length because I find that that's pretty workable, getting it into the head and cutting it off as well. So I'll thread that. Now, I don't put any knots or anything like that at the end of it. I'm simply just doubling up the thread, and I have found that that is sufficient enough to be able to work this thread through the hair. Now, the reason I'm doubling it up all the way is because at the very beginning, I did attempt to only use a single thread. Let me see if I can find a couple of them. At the very, very front, I used a single thread model going through the doll's head, but then quickly realized that that was not going to be thick enough to give my doll a nice look. So I decided to double up the thread and found that the 2 threads per hole actually gave it a much thicker look, and was a lot easier to do as well. So I wanted a nice full head of hair, and opted to do a double thread, which works quite well. So I'm going to put my thimble on, probably on my middle fingers where it's going to fit nicely, and I'm going to actually try to find the holes that are already existing in the doll's head and use those. So find a hole and kind of give it a push through. And I use my thimble to kind of stabilize it and push it as hard as I can. Now this one does have blinky eyes, so inside the doll's head there are little baubles and stuff that I'm gonna have to sort of work around, but I have found that it's not too bad. So I push it all the way in, and as you can see, the needle doesn't come out. So at that point in time, I have to grab my little needle nose pliers, go into the head, grab the needle, and pull it out. So I'm going to thread it, trying to avoid all the other hair that I already have going, because I have made it once where it has sort of gotten caught and pulled other hair through, and I've had to rethread those. So I'm going to pull it until I get about close to the length that I like, right? Because I'm going to cut it, knot it, and then pull back through the length of the head as well. So if it's approximately the length of hair that you want, now I have no idea how long I want her hair because I'm going to style it later on. I'm just going to leave it long for now to give me more options later on. So I'm making the thread nice and long. At the other end where the doll's head is, I'm going to give it a little cut. Take the end that's coming out of the doll, like out of her neck. I'm just going to tie it in a knot. Any knot usually will suffice. I just do a simple overhand knot, so it's knotted at the end. And then I take the other side, if I can find it, and I pull it through. Ta-da! And there it is, hair. So I'll do this a couple of more times for you, so you get a general idea of the process. It does take quite a lot of time. Just to say, I have been working on this doll for a couple of hours overall, just to sort of get these in. If anybody has a process that is easier than this, I would be more than happy to hear about it. But until that time comes, this is how I'm doing it. But so far, I think it looks absolutely beautiful. And I am very happy that I don't have a terrifying doll that my children are running away from in the middle of the night. and I continue to have a beautiful doll that my grandmother gave me as a lovely memento to her. So that is how I do it. You just work your way through all the holes. And I'm sure once I have all the holes filled out, she will have a beautiful full head of hair and will look absolutely gorgeous back on her body. Thanks so much for joining me, guys. Until next time, like or subscribe at the bottom. Bye.